All right, Hannah Sampson is a fantastic Washington Post travel reporter. She's joined us before on the program and been fantastic breaking down everything with the airline industry. Now we're going to focus in on one particular airline, Southwest Airlines. She joined us here on the podcast. Hannah, Mike Leon, Nick Saveri, thank you so much for hopping back on the pod with us.
And thanks for having me.
You know, Hannah, I said this in the close of the last segment. I've never flown Southwest Airlines, not for any reason. You know, I'm a True Blue
Oh,
member, United, American, a lot of options out there. But when one of the biggest airlines, in North America here, has the kind of week that they had over the last 7 to 10 days, it dominated the news cycle, and especially during the holiday break, it was insane. For the people that maybe don't know the intricacies of what actually happened, because it kind of happened around the same time that there was bad weather going throughout
yeah.
most of the country. Can you give our folks, excuse the pun, a 30,000-foot overview of what happened with respect to Southwest Airlines canceling all these flights?
Yeah. So, so the bad weather kind of was nationwide. It affected everybody, but everyone else seemed to recover much more quickly. They were just able to pull themselves together um, kind of remarkably fast. And Southwest, just for some reasons that I'll outline, dragged on and on and on. And instead of recovering, canceled cascading numbers of flights for days and days. And it really took them about a week to recover to anything like normal. Well, everyone else, days earlier had been okay. So there are a couple of things that are unique about Southwest. And one of them is just that they have kind of outdated, this is so boring, like for a passenger to think about, but they have outdated scheduling technology. So when crew are out of place, instead of there just being like some system that magically tracks them, um, they were having to manually call physical schedulers to say, I'm supposed to be in Fort Lauderdale, but instead I'm stuck in Chicago, or, I was scheduled to be in these places, but instead I'm stuck here. And even the staff members were being stuck on hold for hours and hours. They just couldn't track their pilots and flight attendants in order to know where everybody was to get them going again. So that was just like one huge meltdown that it took them. They just kept canceling more and more flights in order to get people back where they needed to be and to get planes back where they needed to be. So that took like a huge toll on them. And the other thing is the way that Southwest operates, which is kind of what makes them like a more nimble, more often affordable airline, is that they don't have like the big hubs that maybe Delta has in Atlanta and United has in Houston, American has in Philly and Charlotte. They have kind of a more point to point system. So instead of having a bunch of planes in one place that go, like from Chicago or from Atlanta, they'll just hopscotch around the country all day. So their planes will go, maybe they'll go from Fort Lauderdale to Austin to somewhere in California to who knows, like wherever they go on all these flights during the day. But when there's disruption, it's not like they have a bunch of backup planes in one hub that they can dispatch to kind of be the relief flights. The planes are just all out of whack, and it takes them so long to get back in order when there's something major like the weather that we saw right before Christmas. So it's like all of these background, intricate operational things that nobody would give a second thought to as they're flying under normal operations. But these kind of hidden practices really worked against Southwest over the holiday week.
And a part of the ire seems to be beyond passengers is now coming from the federal government. Secretary Pete Buttigieg recently talked about, the federal government getting involved and looking in further and essentially doing an inquiry into Southwest. What you just described, however, is a current state of affairs for a smaller airline. As you mentioned before, that agility has worked out for them in the past. What resources or tactics or what have you from the transportation department can the federal government really enact to do anything against a private company, but B, a company that's just more nimble and agile than their larger competitors?
Yeah, I mean, so I will say Southwest is about the fourth largest airline, um, like US based airline, if I'm remembering this right. But they have huge operations in the US. Like domestically, they're a giant airline, not globally. But they make a lot of money. So it's not, they're not like a startup struggling airline. They're traditionally been very profitable. But the DOT has really since the summer been cracking down on airlines when they had operational problems. And they have kind of forced the airlines to make, or at least force the airlines to put on paper the commitments that they make to passengers in a way that is very evident to passengers. There's a dashboard now that the DOT maintains that says what airlines owe or promise they'll do for passengers in case of disruptions. And that includes a refund if your flight is canceled and you choose not to fly on a rebooked flight, or if there are significant delays and you choose not to fly. They don't define what significant delay is, which is kind of a problem because it's really up to the airline. But other things that airlines will do, like if there's a controllable significant delay, that they'll cover your hotel or they'll cover your meals. So these are all things that the DOT kind of made airlines commit to and put in writing on this dashboard. And now they're just saying, like, we're really going to hold Southwest feet to the fire on this, and we're going to make sure that they're good on these promises. But also, they're coming out and saying if there needs to be fines because Southwest had, because this was avoidable or in any way, or if they're not providing refunds in time, or if they're not living up to their promises, we do have the authority to issue fines and to demand that their payment be made to make the passengers whole. So, I think that's what the DOT can do. And Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, was not shy about, going on many, many television shows and talking about how they were going to hold Southwest accountable. And I think that they'll probably be a lot more communication between the CEO and the executives there and the DOT as they're continuing to resolve kind of the leftover refund issues. And really the operational stuff with travelers is pretty cleared out, but a lot of people still don't have their bags. So we'll see kind of where that goes.
Yeah. And about your response, just where you were a moment ago, yeah, I could tell that like this is something that seems either new or like it Southwest seems to be in a weird place where they just wasn't, at the times. In your knowledge, just historically, has the DOT been able to make significant progress with helping a transportation-based organization be able to significantly improve to the place where the secretary is talking about, or in a way that would seem more acceptable to travelers?
I know that they fined several airlines earlier this year who had been delayed in their refunds. They kind of find them punitively, but they also have forced a lot of airlines to pay up. That's something they can do. I don't have like one specific example of an airline, like one airline that they've kind of forced to get better, but they also keep track kind of on a monthly basis of complaints about airlines, and those are publicly available. So it's not like those reports aren't forcing airlines to do anything, but it's definitely like putting them on blast. If somebody had a terrible month, you can look at this list of complaints and see like, wow, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but we'll just say Southwest because this was the case. Southwest had thousands and thousands of complaints in December, and other airlines didn't. It doesn't look good. It's like it's reporting, but it's putting the numbers out there for public consumption in a way that is probably uncomfortable for the airline. So, I'm not sure the DOT is going to be able to mandate like any kind of incredible technological turnaround so that this doesn't happen again with Southwest. But I also think that the public pressure on Southwest is going to be significant enough that they're going to need to figure out ways that they can make this not happen again. you know, you were saying that you hadn't flown, I think it was Mike was saying we hadn't flown Southwest before. Their reputation is really as like a friendly, jovial kind of, their stock symbol is love, LUV. Like they're all about good heart, love the community. Their flight attendants are famously funny. Like they really encourage people to do like little stand-up routines and their safety announcements. And they're famous at the holidays for decorating their gates at the airport. So that's a persona that they've cultivated over many years. And so this kind of meltdown is the opposite of what they want. And I can only imagine leadership is going to do everything that they can in order to keep, not to keep, but to keep this from being like the takeaway that so many people have about Southwest. They're going to really need to recapture hearts and minds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like I said, I've never flown them before, but for no other reason than a couple other airlines that I trust. I want to get into a couple of things with you. First, for the people that are listening to this, because you were talking about bags are still lost. There was people that were stranded. Maybe they were paying for hotels. What's happening right now, present day, with all these folks that have had flights canceled, the crews not being found, the luggages being lost? Like, has Southwest updated the media at all in terms of like where everything is right now? Is everything readily available in some type of portal? I think you had mentioned before. Like, what's going on with everything that's been affected? Everybody that's been affected by this last week, have we caught up or not really?
So the flights are operating pretty normally now. I checked today, and Southwest doesn't have a number of cancellations that's out of the ordinary for other airlines right now. They have a small number of cancellations, but nothing major. They are not being super publicly forthcoming, as far as I can tell, about their status with the bags. I'm waiting for an answer from them right now about how many lost bags are still outstanding and what they're doing to return people to those. They do have a website that they set up specifically for the passengers who were affected to submit for reimbursement, and also to report their bags lost so that they can get an ID and kind of try to track that. But the people who I've talked to are having a pretty hard time getting any information about their bags. So I know there's a lot of frustration there. I've seen like on social media, some people saying they've gotten their refunds already. There's a lot of people who are going to be waiting for money. So I suspect it'll take some time for everyone to be made whole there.
You had mentioned earlier about complaints, being visible, that people can be able to read. Just for listeners of the show, for people to get better informed about airlines, in terms of making decisions about which airlines to particularly use, obviously people tend to look at, travel websites that compare all of them. And then we tend to lead with our wallets. But, for you and being in the informed sector for transportation news, what would you recommend for people to do to just be better informed about which flight carriers and organizations to work with?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's important is, I think, like flying the airlines that have like big operations near you. So, the answer could be different if you live near a Delta hub or an American hub. So just kind of being educated on what the major carriers are where you live. Just because if there's a cancellation and there's 6 American Airlines flights a day out of your airport as opposed to one Delta flight, you're going to want to be flying the airline that has more airlift where you are, because there's a better chance of getting rebooked. So that's one thing. The DOT consumer, like the monthly consumer reports they're dated by a few months, but you can still look at them to see a pattern of on-time performance, for example, or mishandled baggage, or complaints about pet handling. There's all kinds of really fascinating data that is collected about consumer complaints that you can look at. If something matters to you a lot, you can see like mishandled or lost wheelchairs or other equipment. That kind of stuff is tracked. So it's not a predictor of what's going to happen to you, but it does kind of show a pattern. So that's a way to kind of educate yourself, and then just knowing what to do and what your rights are if something is to happen. Some airlines commit to booking you if they're going to cancel your flight, or if they're having some operational problems, they'll commit to booking you on a competing airline to try to get you where you need to go. But some airlines do not commit to that. And that's the kind of thing that appears on that DOT dashboard. So, and I believe Southwest is one of the airlines that does not commit to that. So that's a really important thing to know about if you're going to take a flight and it's crucial that you are going to get where you need to go.
I'm still baffled by how outdated the technology is for Southwest Airlines, that they've been able to last this long with something so, at least it sounds minutia the way you were kind of explaining it, not the plane system itself, but the actual scheduling process sounds so outdated and then now it's caught up to them with all the weather and stuff like that. You can read all of Hannah's fantastic articles about this, covering all this. Again, all the information that you want to find out if you were affected by what happened last week with Southwest Airlines. Check out some of the sites that she just mentioned, and check out all her fantastic work over at the Washington Post. Hannah, can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Continued success to you. Happy New Year. And thank you for being on the program.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching the Can We Please Talk podcast. Whatever clip you just watched, we hope you enjoyed it. And we hope you stick around for some more. Subscribe to the channel. My partner's over here smashing the button. Come on, do him a favor. So hit subscribe.